Hiya Year 6 and welcome to a new day's learning journey, home learning. Now yesterday, lots of us, we did this, didn't we? Made our decision charts and we decided what was the best piece of learning we did, the most important with the green box over here. We decided what was partially important in our learning with the yellow box, and then we decided actually what's not very important at all, and we put that in our red box. And today what we're going to do is a big day for us. We're going to be planning our report on light. And if we go back right to the beginning, let's have a look at our learning journey question. How does light reflect off different surfaces and enable me to see? So actually we're going to have to be thinking about how light reflects off different surfaces and enables us to see. So we need to think about our report, and we're going to be spreading our report across 2 learning journey pages. And in that report, we're going to want 3 sections. So we're going to need 3 subheadings. So what's subheading 1 going to be? Well, that's for you to come up with. What's subheading 2 going to be, and what's subheading 3? So maybe pause the video, have a think about your subheadings, and write the 3 subheadings down. Now you've written down 3 subheadings, you'll probably have something along the lines of this. We'll probably have a section on how light travels. Because that's pretty important, because if we know how light travels, then we know how it reflects. You'll probably have another section on the eye. How the eye enables me to see. And there we go. So there we've got the first 2. We've got how light travels and reflects. So we can go into how light travels and reflects, talk about how it goes in straight lines, and talk how when it hits objects, it bounces off them at the same angle it hits them. And that's where we might use some amazing vocabulary. In subheading 2, we're going to talk about how the eye perhaps enables us to see. Talk about the different parts of the eye and the role it plays in sending images to our brain, and the role it plays in letting the light in. So we're going to talk about all the different parts of the eye. And then in subheading 3, well, if you've gone back in your book, you might talk about the different colour, how we see different colours. And we did that quite recently, didn't we? Because we actually know that light is made up of all the different colours, isn't it? And when you've come up with those 3 things, then you're going to join bullet points to help you with your learning. So, for example, we're going to talk about straight lines, aren't we? We're going to talk about how light travels in straight lines. And we know that because we did our experiment, and we might even explain our experiment. And we're going to talk about reflection. And we're going to talk about all those different things. So you're going to need to go back in your learning journey book, if you've put this, and think about all the learning you did on light travelling and reflecting. Okay, and we did that in our learning journey book, so you can go back and see that work. In subheading 2, we're going to be looking at different parts of the eye. And then also what we're going to be looking at is how light goes into the eye. So we're going to be really talking about the iris and the pupil, aren't we? Because those are the big important parts in the eye that help us see. So we're going to be talking about those 2, and I might even highlight that, because actually that's going to be really important for our learning. So we're going to want to talk about those 2 parts of the eye. And then finally we're going to be talking about the different colours, and we might talk about the prism experiment, because that's the experiment that showed us that actually light is made up of all the colours of the rainbow. And actually it's because light is made up of all those colours of the rainbow that we can actually see, because actually light is made up of all those colours, and actually that means that when it reflects off an object, that actually when it bounces back to us, because it contains the colour blue, we can actually see that something is blue. Or because it contains the colour red, we can actually see the colour red. So that's why we looked at that prism experiment and looked at how actually different colour is shown in light. And then once we've talked about the prism experiment, we might go into some more detail and look up the different colours contained within light. So I'm just going to put within light. So, and actually we can find that, can't we, by looking back in our book. And looking now at my 3 sections, they've gone into very basic and parts. And as you can see, I've come up with 3 subheadings here. So 1, 2, 3. And then I've just bullet pointed the things I'm going to talk about in those sections. And that's going to help me with my writing later on. So when I come to write those sections, I know that I'm going to talk about how light travels in straight lines. And within that, I might talk about the experiment we did. And I'm going to go back and look in my book and find all that great learning that I did. I might even talk about reflection and look at the work I did on reflection. And of course, we learned all about the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection, and how actually when light hits an object, it bounces off that object at the same angle that it hit it. And when it does bounce off that object and then comes away from it, if it goes towards our eyes, that's actually how we see the object. How the eye enables me to see, we know we're going to talk about the different parts of the eye, and we're going to use iris and pupil. And then for subheadings, and we're really going to talk in detail about the iris and the pupil as well. And then for the final subheading, how do we see different colours? We're going to talk about the prism experiment and then different colours within light. So we're going to probably mention all the different colours within light and how actually they make up the colours of a rainbow. And then we're going to think about, well, what diagrams am I going to include in my report? Well, we might use a diagram of reflection, or a drawing. So we might have a drawing of the eye and have it labelled, which is a bit like a diagram anyway. We might have a diagram of the prism experiment, because we've actually done quite a few nice diagrams and drawings in this learning journey. So we could use those 3. Those are all examples of what diagrams we could include. And then finally, what scientific language have I learned, and how are we going to sound like experts? And this is quite an important one. So here I've got angle of incidence, refraction, angle of reflection, light source, because obviously we have different light sources, so light comes from different places. And that's why some of the things we're going to look at as well, and that's something we're definitely going to want to include in our reports, because actually the scientific language is really important. And you might have more than me, so we might have even more words. When we talk about parts of the eye, we're definitely going to want to use the iris. We're definitely going to want to use maybe eyelashes, tell them how actually they protect the eye. When we talk about different light sources, you might label some exactly. So you might say torches, light, sun. If you're talking about the experiment we did at the start, you might say that we used mirrors. So what sort of language are you going to use that makes you sound like an expert, and what sort of experiments can we refer to that show us how light enables us to see by reflecting off surfaces? So what you need to do today is you need to fill out this report. You need to come up with 3 subheadings, and then under those subheadings you need to think about the things you're definitely going to talk about. So I've bullet pointed some things that we're going to talk about in our subheading. So light travels in straight lines, definitely going to need to talk about that. Reflection, parts of the eye, iris and pupil, prism experiment, and different colours within light. And those are things that you're going to want to talk about under each subheading. Then you're going to think about, well, what diagrams can I include in my report? Because if it's just writing, it's going to be boring. So can I draw some diagrams in my report? Can I draw the diagram of reflection? Can I draw the diagram of a prism? Can I draw the eye and label it? Especially that would be really good in how the eye enables me to see. And then finally, what scientific language have I learned? Well, I've learned all these other things, and how can I then use this scientific language in my report? So you need to do that today. You need to go away now and you need to plan up your report. Good luck, and remember to try your best and upload your work to Class Dojo. The more detail you go into your report now, the easier it will be later on.